Welcome to Taking the Higher Road, a DriverReach and FreightWaves podcast production. I'm your host, Jeremy Reymer, founder and CEO of DriverReach. On this show, I interview industry experts and thought leaders who bring their insights to the driver lifecycle as we discuss the industry's greatest challenges, driver recruiting and retention. This week, I'm excited to be joined by two young men, James Robinson and Nate Tellis, co-founders of RocketCDL, one of the newer software companies in trucking focused on solving the very important but often underrepresented driver referral program. Great to see you both. Thanks for joining me.
Hey, thank you, Jeremy.
Thanks, Jeremy. Looking forward to it.
Now, just for the viewers' sake, which one of you is James and which one of you is Nate?
I'm James.
Yeah, and I'm Nate Tellis.
Now, Nate will always know who you are because you've got the deepest voice of anyone I've ever spoken to. So, so glad to have you guys. Right now companies are struggling like crazy to recruit and retain drivers. Everyone's looking for ways to reduce their costs while still being able to grow their candidate pipeline. So, what's become a tradition now as we start these podcasts is a true or false question. So, I'm going to ask one. Are you ready?
Sure. Yeah, I think we're ready.
A strong driver referral program is one of the best ways to recruit drivers who also end up staying longer. True or false?
Well, that's a tough one. I think we have to settle on true.
I think so. Yeah.
Fair. I know it was iffy, but but the eyes have it, right? True wins. So, and I think to that point, an organized, well-oiled referral program gives your drivers the tools they need to be an effective extension of your recruiting process. Now, most companies have a driver referral program, but so many of them are empty. They embrace the concept, but the execution is poor. Can you share a little about RocketCDL and how you can help companies with the proper execution of their driver referral program?
Yeah, so just to reiterate, RocketCDL is a referral management and marketing platform for trucking companies who are trying to increase their referrals. And I think, to your point, Jeremy, where a lot of companies have a referral program, but, really the devil's in the details of the execution. We think of creating a successful referral program, you can use a lot of the principles of marketing where, just because you have it doesn't mean that they'll come. Marketing your referral program in a consistent and friendly way to your drivers keeps it top of mind. And we know from, 18 plus months of data from our partners that really does make a difference in the culture of the referral program. And, for those recruiters, it really does result in more referrals.
And so that comes down to getting contests in front of them frequently, getting messaging about what current promotions are being offered. And we at RocketCDL provide both a managed service for all of that. So we help carriers run their referral programs and manage contests, manage campaigns to get the word out. But we also have a full utility and carrier portal for them to go in and run any additional campaigns or contests that they want to. So it's both a managed service that we provide as well as a full service platform for the carrier.
That sounds like the MO for a lot of software companies. You provide a product, but then you also can help them with the management and the use of it. Now, you're both fairly new to trucking, right? I mean, I remember meeting you for the first time a few years ago, and I'm just curious, what was it that attracted you to the industry, and what inspired you to build RocketCDL?
Yeah, so my first job was at a technology company that specialized in driver recruiting and marketing. And, through that experience, Nate and I realized that there was a lot of, underserved need in the trucking industry. Specifically, referral programs was something that, maybe was not the primary focus of a lot of recruiting or marketing organizations within trucking companies. So Nate and I teamed up with Melton Truck Lines. They helped us develop RocketCDL, and we launched RocketCDL with Melton Truck Lines in the middle of 2019. So, the rest is history. We've added several large partners in addition to some small ones, and we've really kind of found a formula for repeatable success of executing referral programs, anywhere from companies that already have an established referral program to companies that really don't. And we've helped them kind of get something up and running.
And as to why we started focusing on referrals in particular, this was probably in late 2017. We were already hearing about how bad the driver shortage was, and at that point, the numbers we were hearing were 40,000, 50,000 drivers out of the market, and so forth. And by the beginning of the pandemic, we were hearing from some sources that it was 200,000 drivers lacking from the industry. And of course, that's a little bit better now, but from all the research that we were seeing, it's very clear that drivers that are referred stay on longer. They tend to be some of the better employees. They tend to get hired quicker. There's a much better ratio of applicants who come from referrals to ones who are ultimately hired. So all of those things made us really focus down on referrals as this one particular acquisition channel.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And as I kind of mentioned earlier, it's a lot harder today to hire a driver than it's been that I've seen, and I've been in the industry close to 20 years. It's really, really tough. And so making sure that you're leveraging all of the tools at your disposal, one of those, and I think maybe in what we're talking about today is maybe the strongest one of those is your own, drivers, your own people who can be ambassadors of your brand, and being able to leverage them in a way where, and empower them in a way to be able to drive more, conversions is huge. And like James, like you mentioned, there's a lot of companies have a referral program.
Yeah.
But again, the execution of it is very poor. They might say, yeah, we have one. And it may be very generous, but they don't ever do anything with it because no one's using it. They're just not executing. And so I think that's what really attracts me to want to share your story with the industry. I think it's unique and really important. You're striking a chord here. And I know, RocketCDL has an integration with DriverReach, for example, with our software platform. But and I know you integrate with other applicant tracking systems, but customers can use RocketCDL as a standalone too. Is that right?
Yeah, that's totally correct. So, for example, in the first 6 months of RocketCDL's life with Mountain Truck Lines, they didn't have any type of integration. Their recruiters and marketers were in the platform 100%. That being said, it's interesting. Some of our larger partners, due to the kind of benefits of automation of these integrations, at first weren't really in our platform as much. But as we've added more features, especially things related to tracking marketing performance of particular campaigns to push referrals over 2 weeks or a month, we found that those larger partners have been in the platform more and more because they can get a lot of value out of data that we can provide around their marketing efforts.
Additionally, there are a couple of things that are always going to be sort of manual in this industry. Occasionally, a driver calls in and has someone really good that they want to refer. And, since we don't yet have an artificial intelligence that answers the phone for you and takes all of those, coming Q2 2022, for now, a recruiter has to go into RocketCDL and add that lead if somebody calls them in. But we give a really simple way for them to do that. And of course, we attempt to track as much as we can, as many of the referral leads as we can through automated channels.
So data is your point, right? You want to collect that data, and you can make better decisions, from that. Now, aside from using RocketCDL, I'm just, you because you're in the space now and really all in. Can you offer? Let's talk maybe about some best practices. For those listening or watching who want to improve their driver referral process. Maybe some things that you might that you've recognized that can really make a difference.
I would say really the number one thing, I think thinking of your driver referral program as an extension of your marketing department, where just because you have it doesn't mean that they're going to come. You need to be consistently marketing to your drivers. Perhaps that's different contests or special promotions, but even things like driver education campaigns that, we do indeed have a referral program. Here are the benefits, because I think a lot of folks may take it for granted that all your drivers do know about your referral program or are thinking about it all the time, which just isn't the case based on how busy they are with their day-to-day.
Well, that gets to the execution, right, that I'm talking about.
Yeah. Marketing is, I think, probably the most important piece of that execution.
And then, once your drivers are aware of it and they have somebody that they want to refer, I think the most important thing is just to have the friction be as low as possible for them to refer. So you've got, a huge variety of people, and they vary in how tech savvy they are. Some people are going to want to download an app and refer somebody through that. Some people are going to want to call you. Some people will may be happier with handing out a business card or something like that. And so because these referral leads are so valuable, because these are people that tend to stay on longer, because they tend to get hired faster, I think it's kind of incumbent on your recruiting department to sort of go the extra mile And one thing that we've heard from a number of our carrier partners is that frequently drivers will form a relationship with their recruiter or their dispatcher or somebody in ops who they met early on, and frequently those relationships are what will that's the first person that a driver will go to when they have somebody to refer. And so I think fostering those relationships and giving your recruiters a really easy way, if the driver does come to them with a lead, to be able to react to it quickly, and so they don't feel like that is just going into the ether somewhere. I think all of that is really important.
Well, and to that point, I think there's such a parallel to just recruiting in general. You really need to make it as easy as possible for the driver. If you consider this whole process from their perspective, you start realizing, oh, here's an area of friction that we can remove, and it sounds like you're doing that, to a whole nother level with the driver referral process. Any other things that we can maybe highlight in terms of just best practices that they can take away? Those who are watching or listening can take away today.
Yeah, I think especially, and we've seen this from our larger partners, but if you're a large fleet, I think you probably realize how the pitfalls, but also the huge benefits of having a streamlined IT process. And referrals, if you're a large company, you should ideally, in a perfect world, you can get a lot of referrals. But if your IT process isn't set up to be able to, number one, collect those referrals, do correct attribution of who's actually being referred, who's referring, and then being able to process those in your applicant tracking system, you can't improve what you can't measure. So being able to have a consolidated IT process, being able to measure the results of your referral program and your marketing efforts is really the first thing you need to do to start improving the referral program.
And I think one other thing that sort of makes that extra important is when drivers come on, you want them to be able to refer right away, because we've noticed from our various partners that it's really in those first 3 weeks after a driver gets hired that they're most likely to make a referral. And if they're going to become somebody who refers consistently over the time that they're at your company, it's most likely that that's going to start in those first few weeks. So you don't want a process which is cumbersome to begin with, because I know, at least personally, the first time I run into a roadblock with any kind of thing, I'm much less likely to do it going forward. And so if you can capture that first several weeks, the sort of honeymoon period of that driver being at your company, so to speak, you can get a lot of value out of that.
Well, and it is incumbent upon the carrier, right, the employer, to make sure that they are providing an environment that is conducive to getting those referrals, right? I mean, they've got to be a quality employer that is good at communicating and treats their employees or owner operators with dignity and respect, and it's a place that people will want to work. And if you can remove those barriers and friction that's in the way of a recruiting or a referral process, then you're going to be able to open a lot of doors. But the inverse, you can have the greatest referral process in the world, and if you suck, put it plainly, if you suck as a company, as a carrier, they're going to go elsewhere. But you know where they're going to go? They're going to go to the place where a driver probably says, hey, if you're not happy where you are, let me tell you about this company. And so, and that may be somebody who's using RocketCDL, and they're understanding the benefits of the driver referral process and leveraging the technology there.
Yeah, and Jeremy, we see a huge variety in how successful companies' referral programs are. I mean, I think going into this, actually, my intuition was that we might see sort of a factor of 5 plus or minus in how many referrals companies get. But in terms of the number of referrals per month per driver figure, right, we see a factor of 20 variability there between fleets at the high and low end, and a lot of that has to do with the fleets that have a really good company culture where drivers know that they're respected, and they're much more willing to bring their friends on. So I think a lot of that comes from company culture, but you're sort of leaving it on the table if you don't have a good system to track it and to optimize.
Yeah, you're not taking advantage. You're not leveraging that like you could, and technology's come a long way. I know in especially beginning of COVID, once that started to hit, the adoption of technology really escalated significantly. And I'm not sure if you guys have kind of experienced that same thing, but I've seen that companies are embracing technology at a much faster rate. And I'm not talking about, I mean, it's stuff that's always been there, but they're just embracing it in a whole nother manner, and it's encouraging, and it certainly has been an opportunity for us to help companies hire drivers faster and more efficiently. Have you noticed this as well into last year?
Yeah, so I think, when there's an economic disruption or, kind of uncertainty, I think a lot of folks at, trucking companies, it's an instinct to get leaner and to get more efficient. And I think, technology is a double-edged sword where, there's a lot of buzz and kind of hype around some technology. And I think technology for technology's sake can be, counterproductive. I think where we've really kind of found success with RocketCDL thus far is teams that adopt RocketCDL, they're able to get a really tangible return on investment on their usage of our platform, where our platform or any other platform where you can really utilize this technology to get a real return and in kind of absolute terms run leaner, where you can do more with less. If you're using technology right. So I think really just a focused application of technology that really you can kind of quantitatively know, okay, I'm getting this return on my investment in time or money on a piece of technology.
Yeah, and I think speaking to sort of referrals in the pandemic in particular, this is something that obviously it involves a lot of person-to-person communication. And I think that we did, in fact, see a huge drop-off in referrals sort of early on in the pandemic. But I think a lot of carriers realized that some of the sort of things that they were telling drivers to do and techniques that they had to grow their referral programs before don't really scale to a time of social distancing and so forth. Drivers are less likely to go up to a stranger at a truck stop and just chat them up or hand them a business card. So, giving them the ability to refer someone digitally, giving the ability to reach out via campaigns and all the marketing functionality that we have has been valuable. Carriers don't have as many options in safety meetings or during in-person orientation to promote the referral program. So giving them the option to do that, via reaching out, SMS, email, push notifications through a mobile app, et cetera, has been hugely valuable. And we have seen carriers jumping at that opportunity.
Well, we're still not out of the woods, by the way. From a COVID standpoint, it's still something that we're all dealing with. The new year, came in and basically you replaced 2020 with 2021, but nothing else has changed. Oh, well, I guess we had an insurrection of some sort, right? And let's add that to the mix. But aside from that, we're still not out of the woods. So we're still in that same environment that you just described. And I'm just curious, do you have any thoughts on what 2021 and beyond might look like, at least in the near term, say the next 1 or 2 years? And again, you guys being fairly new entrants in the industry, I feel like you might bring a different perspective that's not as jaded as those of us who've been around, a lot longer in the space.
Oh, don't worry, Jeremy. I'm not too jaded yet. I still have plenty of time for that. I think with these kind of shifts based on necessity, where you're not able to have as much face time with drivers, even when the pandemic is winding down, if I could use that term, or we have wide distribution of vaccine, I think companies who have adopted technologies that allow them to be leaner aren't going to go back to the less lean ways they were doing things before. So I think really what's worked well for companies, just kind of through trial and error, or kind of a natural selection of things that have worked well. I think teams that have realized the value of that are going to keep going in that direction. So in terms of, where we're going, I think, really just utilizing technologies that allow companies to do more with less is the theme in my mind.
Yeah, I'd agree with that 100%. And I think I double down on the fact that not only will they not go back to the way things were before, but they will continue. Their eyes have been opened in many cases on the efficiencies that technology can bring. And then they're not all the same, for sure. It's not technology for the sake of it, but anytime it, to your point, allows you to do more with less, allows you to consolidate and maybe, in one place see a lot of information that otherwise you might have had to go to all these different sources. Anything like that, and more technology is, especially in all industries, but certainly in trucking, we're seeing a greater level of integrations and opportunities, companies partnering together, and how can they provide a better experience? How can they improve the industry overall? And how can they provide a better experience for both, in our case, being on the recruiting and retention side, in those spaces, whether it's, the HR or recruiting or, safety and compliance. Anything that we can do that pushes the industry forward, that helps them with the use of technology to operate more efficiently and faster, that is going to afford the companies that are embracing that. They're going to be more successful. They're going to crush their competition at the end of the day. So now, for those who are interested in learning more, I'm curious, where can they reach you? And is it safe to assume that you have some sort of a demo type of process where people can take a look at the platform and all that it does?
Yeah, so you can go to RocketCDL.com or email Nate at RocketCDL.com or myself at James@RocketCDL.com. In terms of a demo, I think that can be valuable. That being said, the most important thing for us is to have a real conversation. I think to start things off with a marketing team or a carrier. I think the software is kind of in implementation kind of detail, whereas I think the true value can be really, gathered by, having FaceTime or really understanding kind of where that company wants to take their referral program through a conversation.
As much as our software, does integrate with your IT process, integrate with your applicant tracking system, and so forth, we aren't like an applicant tracking system in that we don't really expect your recruiters to live and breathe in RocketCDL. If you're interested in learning more, I think reaching out to us and we can certainly tell you more. One other thing I'd say is that we have a lot of other interesting products and features in the pipeline. So, if this isn't something that you think you really want to learn more about right now, I think it's worth following us on LinkedIn or signing up for our email newsletter, because we're going to have some cool stuff coming down the rest of 2021.
Sounds like you're lobbying for another podcast session where we can we can hear about some of the new things.
Anytime.
Yeah.
Well, and going back to, I think, when we first met, it was at the Great American Trucking Show in Dallas a few years ago. And I'm just kind of walking the floor. I think it was the last day that I was going to be there. I think it may have been a Saturday, and I'm just kind of looking. I saw you both. You had a booth, and I walked up to you, and I was intrigued. I didn't know what it was yet, so I was curious to hear about what your offering was. And you both were familiar with me, and it was obvious once we met that you had been doing your homework in the industry. You weren't just Silicon Valley, kind of yahoos that have no idea about trucking. You did your homework. You found an area, a nuance in the industry that was very underserved. That I don't know of anything that exists in the space whatsoever from a competitive standpoint. And you said, here's how we can take this issue that companies have from a recruiting standpoint, and we can use technology to make this a lot better. And so just in that initial conversation, that's what really attracted me to you in the first place. And obviously been in touch ever since. And, we have an integration together, and I really like what you do. And I hope that others have the opportunity to experience it and feel the same way. So I'm grateful that we had this opportunity to connect here. It's always great to catch up with you. So James, Nate, thank you so much for joining me today.
Hey, thank you, Jeremy.
Yeah, thanks, Jeremy. It's been a pleasure.
And thanks for joining me for another episode of Taking the Higher Road podcast. Remember to follow along at driverreach.com/podcast. And if you have a question, comment, or suggestion for a podcast guest, you can drop me a note at podcast@driverreach.com. Until next time, stay true to taking the higher road.